The NFL trade deadline is just 24 hours away, and with every single team making calls around the league either to sell off their assets or acquire players to go on a Super Bowl run, there's going to be a lot of movement in the NFL over the next 24 hours. A lot of teams have moves to make, and a lot of teams are going to try to buy and win as many games as possible this season. But the Detroit Lions are a specific case, right? Over the last almost month, there has been rumors flying around that they are trading for an edge rusher, that it is not a matter of if, but a matter of when. And right before the Detroit Lions were set to take the field on Sunday afternoon in Lambeau Field, there was a rumor that was saying that the Detroit Lions and the Cleveland Browns seemingly had a trade set in stone to bring pass rusher ZaDarius Smith to the Detroit Lions. Now, this is a rumor. This has not yet been confirmed by the NFL, the Cleveland Browns, or the Detroit Lions. But after nearly a month of speculation, a month of talking about ZaDarius Smith, a month of rumors and hearing that every single team that needs a pass rusher has called the Browns about Smith, there seems to be some good evidence to back this up. And the rumor was that this trade would either be confirmed late into the night on Sunday or at some point throughout the day on Monday as the two teams finalize their terms and conditions. So today, we're going to take a look at this trade possibility, take a look at what ZaDarius Smith would bring to the Detroit Lions, what the compensation will probably be based on reports, and whether or not this is a good move for the Detroit Lions. Now, again, this move is not confirmed. ZaDarius Smith is not yet a Detroit Lion, but this does seem like a trade that is likely, if not already in progress of happening. And by the time the video comes out, the news may have already broken. So today, let's talk about the trade. Let's talk about the player and talk about what it means for the Detroit Lions as they move forward, looking to win the NFC and represent them in the Super Bowl. Now, Za'Darius Smith, as I mentioned, has been a very popular trade target over the last couple of weeks, right? A veteran option, a good fit for just about any defense, a cheap option as far as trading for him, and he is still very, very productive. There's not a whole lot of downsides to trading for a player like Za'Darius Smith if you are a Super Bowl contending team looking for some extra pass rushing juice. Za'Darius Smith is a 10-year NFL veteran with 321 career tackles, 65 career sacks, 82 tackles for loss, 163 quarterback hits, and has been named to the Pro Bowl 3 times over the last 6 years. He has been one of the quieter great pass rushers in the NFL. He has been super productive. He has, I believe, 3 seasons of 10 plus sacks throughout his career. And overall, I think has been very underrated for the large majority of his career. And while he is 31, he is a veteran. He is kind of aging out of his prime. He is still a super productive player as through 9 games of the NFL season in 2024, 23 tackles, 6 TFLs, 7 QB hits, and 5 sacks. He recorded 8 pressures a week ago in the Cleveland Browns victory versus the Baltimore Ravens and has been on a really, really good trajectory, right? He might not be Aiden Hutchinson where he had 45 pressures through 4.5 games, but realistically, this is probably the Detroit Lions' best option. A player that can consistently get pressure, a player that can consistently win one-on-one matchups, a player that can finish plays, that can add some pass rushing juice, and can really bring together what you've wanted to have as a defense. Not to mention, he could potentially be an option next year as well to pair with Aiden Hutchinson as a veteran piece, a veteran pass rusher, somebody that, might not get 10 sacks anymore throughout his NFL career, but could certainly put up 8, 9, maybe hit that 10 sack mark yet again alongside Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, and DJ Reader. But at the very least, adds a good edge rusher too, adds a little bit of pass rush to what the Lions have sorely been lacking over the last month, and I think brings what the Detroit Lions want to bring into the organization. Now, the projected trade has been a 4th-round selection for ZaDarius Smith. Brad Holmes typically tries to do a pick swap in there as well, so I wouldn't be shocked if it was like a 4th for ZaDarius Smith and a 6th, or a conditional 4th for ZaDarius Smith and a 6th, right? Brad Holmes typically doesn't like giving away draft capital without receiving it in return, even though it will be lesser draft capital. He likes having the same amount of picks before and after every single trade. Typically, that's how he works. That is, of course, not a guarantee, but just kind of a speculation based off what has happened in the past. Now, looking at this from the Detroit Lions side, they are in desperate need of a pass rush. Over the last 3 games, the Detroit Lions have recorded 0 sacks from their defensive line. Versus Green Bay, they had 0 sacks as a football team and just 2 quarterback hits on the day. Now, I know Green Bay ran the ball quite a bit, but Jordan Love had his fair share of opportunities to drop back, and the Detroit Lions pass rush hit him, not even sacked him, made contact with the quarterback 2 times in that game in Lambeau Field. Now, it is important to note that over the last 3.5 games with Aiden Hutchinson, the defense has been really good. In the last 3 games in particular, the Detroit Lions have allowed just 16 points per game on defense. They have not allowed more than 22 points on defense at any point throughout the last 3.5 game stretch. They have 6 turnovers in the last 3 games, as well as, of course, being 3-0, with only one of those victories being a 1-score contest in Minnesota. They have still been one of the league's best defenses over the last 3 to 4 weeks. Without their star pass rusher, with 9 defensive linemen on injury reserve, they are still one of the best defenses in football. They are still one of the toughest defenses to score on, one of the best run defending defenses in the NFL, and they are still being a massive part of what the Detroit Lions have found their success in doing. Now, taking a look back at this matchup versus Green Bay, this is the snap count for what the Lions saw on defense on Sunday, right? Ali McNeil took a majority of the snaps on the defensive line, 84%. Levi Onwuzurike had 75%. And then you get into the not so great players, right? James Houston had 55% of the defensive snaps in week 9 and did not record a quarterback hit, did not record a quarterback sack, and barely had any pressures. He looked very subpar for what he was in 2022 and even what he was in 2023. James Houston doesn't seem to have the burst, the bend, or the ability to get to the quarterback anymore. And for a player playing 55% of snaps to record just 2 pressures on the day is not very good. Muhammad had 51% of snaps. Again, the practice squad player that was signed 2 weeks ago, his second competition with the Lions in a row. He, again, didn't really have any big plays, really recorded very few pressures, didn't get a quarterback hit, definitely didn't get a quarterback sack. The edge rushing duo of Houston and Muhammad, who both played over half the defensive snaps for the Lions, combined for maybe 4 pressures with 0 quarterback hits and 0 quarterback sacks. DJ Reader had 49% of defensive alignments and defensive snaps, which is, pretty good for him. Pat O'Connor had 17% of snaps, and then Isaiah Thomas had 12. So overall, it's kind of been what it has been, right? The Detroit Lions interior defensive line of Ali McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike, and DJ Reader have been phenomenal, and their edge rushers of James Houston, Muhammad, and Thomas really haven't been doing anything, right? With Josh Paschal missing games, with Mekhi Wingo out, with, of course, Aiden Hutchinson and Marcus Davenport not being where they need to be, this defensive line is significantly struggling. And as I said, haven't recorded a sack on the defensive line in over 10 quarters of football. It has certainly been tough for the Detroit Lions. And it hasn't entirely been on the construction of the roster. The Lions injury report just off of pass rushers alone is Aiden Hutchinson, Marcus Davenport, Broderick Martin, Kyle Pico, John Kaminsky, Derek Barnes, and as of the last 2 games, Josh Paschal and Mekhi Wingo. They are not on injury reserve, but they have missed the last game or 2, and I think that it is important to note that they have also missed time on the defensive line. So let's say that this trade goes through. Let's say that the Detroit Lions give up a 4th-round selection. They get ZaDarius Smith, only paying him $700,000 this season, by the way, and then $7 million the season after with 0 guaranteed. What does the defensive line look like, and does it look any better than what they've had? Well, I think in a post-trade / healthy scenario where Josh Paschal kind of recovers from his illness and Mekhi Wingo comes back after missing last week versus the Packers, I actually think the defensive line looks pretty good with Josh Paschal, Aleem McNeil, DJ Reader, and Levi Onwuzurike being kind of your front 4, with ZaDarius Smith being a great pass rushing option alongside Josh Paschal, and then Mekhi Wingo being a versatile piece on the interior as well. That gives you 6 defensive linemen that I think you can really trust to get the job done, right? None of them are Aiden Hutchinson. None of them are going to put up 10 to 15 sacks a season, but you're going to have a strong defensive line. You're going to have a defensive line that is improved in the run game with this trade, a pass rush that I think ZaDarius Smith and Josh Paschal can combine for 10, 11 sacks together as a duo, which is better than what the Detroit Lions have had as of recent weeks. And while I don't think this trade is necessarily going to make the Detroit Lions a top tier pass rush, right? I don't think it's going to make them an elite defensive line in the NFL like they were coming in. I do think that it is an addition. I do think that it brings more pass rush. I think it brings more pressure on the quarterback. It brings another dimension to what the Detroit Lions have had over the last couple of weeks. And for a team that in the last 3 weeks have allowed just 16 points per game on the defensive side of the ball, adding a pass rusher, adding anything to the defense that could possibly improve it is a very, very scary thought, and one that I think Brad Holmes certainly needs to take advantage of. So with that being said, that is the scenario where the Detroit Lions trade for ZaDarius Smith. It could potentially be done today. It could potentially be done as this video is being uploaded, but it does seem as though this will get done. There have been rumors. There have been a lot of people talking about this potentially being a done deal. And while I don't want to, put the carriage before the horse, I don't want to, jump the gun. I do think this is a trade that will go through. I do think this is a trade that needs to be made. And I think this is a trade that will help the Detroit Lions as they go forward through the second half of their season. So with that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about this trade scenario, if there was a different player you might have had on your radar, or if you think ZaDarius Smith is the best option. I'd be curious to hear your guys' opinion. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.